up. The simplest, easiest, cheapest, if you want to save tax dollars, send it in. Because they hire people to go door to door to those households where we haven't received a form. So that actually wastes money if you don't send it in. And there's a knock on your door. So if you want the government to stay away, fill it out early, and get it in the mail.
I have a statistic right here.
More than one knock. I think y'all can go, what,
seven
times?
Yes.
7 times. Yeah. They're not going to give up the first time.
I have a statistic in front of me that says it costs 42 cents to mail the form to you. Right. It costs $57 for someone to make a visit to your home.
And that's not government money, that's our money. Yeah. That's tax money.
That goes back to the idea that this is our money. And I think the further on that statistic is if 100% of the people mailed it in, we would save taxpayers $1.5 billion.
That's the third statistic I have
again,
there. Yes.
That isn't some money that's made up, in the sky. That money belongs to the people that work 40 hours a week.
It's money that can be distributed back.
But I want to add to the comment is that not only you will be knocked by the census 2010, you will be knocked by the council members and the staff. You will be knocked by the city staff, the mayor staff, because we want to make sure that everybody is counted, because the money is not only for the city and the county and the council here, but it is for the whole region. So we are going to be there. Definitely.
Commissioner, help me with this one then. We hear nationwide that the response to the census is at an all-time low. It's very low percentage. If we have a higher percentage from this region that fills it out and sends it back, not only would we theoretically be getting the money that's owed us, we would be getting a bigger piece of the pot because that money's got to go somewhere. So if we have a stronger showing against the rest of the country, we can get a lot more money here. Is that accurate?
I like the way you think. I think that's absolutely correct. The more people that are counted, I mean, we can brag that we're, 4.1 maybe million people in the Harris County, but we got to make sure that we count all those people, and it's possible that it's even more than that. So the more people, again, it means $13,000 in the next 10 years per person. That means a household of 4 can be responsible for bringing in $52,000 to their community for school projects, clinics, infrastructure projects, better parks. I mean, things that will really help your neighborhood. What better way of doing it by just simply filling out a form that you can get that kind of return? So the more people are counted, the more money we'll get out of Washington. A lot of people complain about Washington today. They're angry. Well, if you want to get back at Washington, fill out the form and get money back.
Then you'll get your fair share. Aziz is on the phone with us right now. Aziz, what's your question? Aziz, are you there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, what is your question for our panel?
Yes, sir. I was listening to the program, and my wife was filling out the form as we were speaking, and she was telling me that she wasn't going to put in the date of birth, and I told her it's necessary that you have to put in the date of birth. So what the gentleman just said, that if you don't fill out if you don't fill it out correctly, they're going to return to you. I just want to say that he did a great job by saying that. So that's answered my question.
And let's just clarify, they're not going to return it to you. They're going to come knock at your door to get the correct answer.
Exactly, and it's going to cost the government more money. So it's cheaper for us to fill it out and mail it back to you, and it won't cost much,
Yes, thank you for that comment. I will say, growing up, I had a neighbor who always, when asked her age, would say over 21. She said there was nothing they needed to know more than that. Why can't we just have over 21?
Well, the age question is vitally important for planning purposes. I mean, facilities for senior citizens, hospitals, schools, population. I mean, the age question is really a vital question for a lot of programs.
And from a business standpoint, there's a particular demographic that businesses look for. So if your typical customer is 25 years old, then you may look for an area that's heavily populated by 25-year-olds. And that's a way, and you got to understand, wherever businesses want to go, jobs will follow. So if you want jobs in your community, you have to understand that filling out the census could bring jobs to your community if you have the demographic that matches those businesses.
Yeah, following up on this business question, we're not just talking about local businesses either, as wonderful as they are. National chains always look at the census, and they take those numbers and they decide where they're going to put their new stores and their new outlets. And there are communities all over the state of Texas, all over the country, that don't have, I won't name a name, but they don't have a particular food outlet because it's not big enough. Well, the same within our community. They're going to look at the areas and say, okay, this looks like a great place for a retail store, and that retail store then would hire people who live in that neighborhood. Mm-hmm. So it's very beneficial for people to fill those things out.
And you're not just gathering raw numbers of the city or the state. You are looking into region, in neighborhoods. It's being very finitely determined, correct?
Yes, we publish data down to the lowest level possible that does not identify an individual.
Okay. Our next caller has a question that has been coming to us quite a bit, but I'll let the caller do it. Introduce yourself and tell us what your question is.
Hello.
Hello there.
My question is, we have a P.O. box where we receive our mail delivery. Our physical address, the Postal Service doesn't deliver out here. So I was just wondering, and we have not yet received the census form. I'm just wondering if it's still coming or if that could be a problem.
And I will add on, thank you for that call. I will add on also what I've seen is somebody wrote to us and said they have gotten 2 notices, one that it was coming and one that they have not yet returned it, and they still haven't gotten the form. What if you don't have a form?
Well, I guess I'm taking that one.
Yes, I guess you are.
As you can imagine, mailing out, I believe it was 138 million forms was the last number I got.
Let me interject here. It is the largest single delivery ever undertaken by the United States.
Yes. As you can imagine, there's a lot of issues with our country as far as how people get mail or not. We do not send the questionnaire to P.O. boxes because we need to map spot a person to a particular place. It's the same reason we don't count people at malls, because that doesn't do anybody any good. We need to know exactly where you live, and people may have P.O. boxes in one part of town and live somewhere else. So we need to mail them to actual structures. In the case where you did not get a form because you only get mail at a P.O. box, hopefully we would have known that, so we might have hand-delivered. But if we didn't, you can request a form. Forms are still going out now. There's still a replacement mailer coming, so you might get it. But if not, after April 12th, you can call a phone number, which is prominent on our website, and I think you're going to put it on your website as well, to request a form, and they will mail one to a P.O. box at that time.
At the end of the show, we will have some web addresses and phone numbers for you, so you'll be able to get this information. I assume that that's the number that we're going to be referring to. Here's an interesting question that comes out to us, and I hate that we even have to ask this question, but we do have to ask this question. I'm going to direct it toward the mayor. How do we account for the homeless and those living in tent cities across the country? How does the census count in those folks?
They are actually physically enumerated. We have teams, often teams of volunteers, that go out to help with the complete count for the homeless. We recognize that not everybody is in a dwelling, and we want to know that they're here as well. It's similar to the question about, well, why do we want to count people who may not be here legally? We still have to provide them water. We still have to provide them basic services. The civic infrastructure here has to be here to support people, and we need to know that those people are here, however they got here. But we do a special effort to do a complete count of the homeless and going where they are.
Bring up the undocumented workers and those folks that are here, as we've called it, illegally. And we were having a discussion with some folks before the show even began tonight, saying, but why should we count them? Why should they be involved in this? But still, the police have to go there when there's an incident. They have to be provided with, as you said, water and fire services and ambulances and all of that. And if you are a tax-paying citizen who's here in this country, as you should be.
Actually, everyone who is here pays taxes.
Well, we hope.
No, everyone who is here. If you buy a pack of gum at a store, you pay taxes.
Yes.
That those folks, when they get their services, if you're not counting everyone in your community, that service will be slower to you too. So you need to know what everyone is, so there is enough service for everyone. Correct?
Yes, and we also count prisoners, we count people in hospice, we count people on military bases. Everyone that is living in the country is counted, regardless of their socioeconomic situation or immigration status, or whether they have a driver's license or not, whether they register to vote. Those are not issues that the census deals with. We're doing a head count of how many people live here so that we can distribute federal funds to communities and have accurate planning for those bodies.
The Constitution simply says every person must be counted, and person means everybody. It doesn't say citizen, like when it talks about who can run for office or for Congress, it has to be a citizen, or who can vote, it has to be a citizen. But when it comes to the census, it says every person. That means no regard to immigration status, to sex, to age. It's every person.
Infants, the brand new baby.
The brand new
wanna
baby.
know.
The new baby gets counted too. We have a caller right now.
Let me ask you, how long does someone have to be in the country to be counted?
Well, the question is, do you live and stay here most of the time? We don't count tourists, obviously, or people staying in a hotel and flying back to the villa in France. We try to capture the people that are actually calling this place their home.
Is it safe to say people who, if you name a place as your primary base, that's where you should be counted?
If you live in this country, you should be counted.
But you do make it a fact that it should be where you are April 1st.
Correct. But the question is, where do you live and sleep here most of the time? So the question, I mean, if you happen to be visiting Aunt May and somewhere else, we're not expected to be counted there. The questionnaire goes to every household, and they're asking, is April 1st, how many people live in this household on April 1st?
When we talked about this before, I made a joke of the fact that when my mother visits, it's for a very long period of time. She will be here during April 1st. So we joked about that, but then that makes me think she is not at her primary residence to receive her form and to fill it out.
Correct.
What should she do? What should people that are here for a prolonged period of time over this period, even if they don't consider this their residence?
Sure, and that's often a problem. A lot of times people think, well, Uncle Bob is sleeping on the couch, but he doesn't live here. I don't really want to count him as living here. You know, we're trying to get people to accurately identify how many people are living in their household. If your mother-in-law happens to stay, the technical answer is, if your mother-in-law stays more than 6 months, then theoretically she's yours. She stayed there most of the time. That's the technical answer.
This person, whomever it is, wants to be accurately counted where they're at,
Correct.
but they are not there to get their form.
They will either receive a visit because we didn't get a form back from that household, or they could go to a Be Counted site where there are forms available and fill one out.
Okay, so and if you're in Texas but you live in New York or something, you can fill one out in Texas, putting your correct information. It will get where it needs
Those
to go.
Be Counted forms, exactly. Yes.
Okay,
But
We do
every
have a call.
household does get one.
We have a call right now who actually is kind of falling in line with what we're talking about. Caller, what is your question? You there for us?
Oh, yes, I'm here.
Hello there. What is your question?
Okay, I think it just got answered. I had two questions, though. One was regarding a daughter that lives out of the city. She lives in a dorm, but she is home with us periodically, so she got a census form to fill out at her dorm, but we were going to include her in on our census form here at the house.
So what have you taken from our conversation? Where should she fill out her form?
Well, I guess from what you just said was April 1st, wherever she's living at that point, she fills it out. Is that correct?
Where she lives the majority of the time. So if she's at the dorm more than she's at home, she should be counted at the dorm.
And, you know, the best example we have of that is
So I guess...
Hold on one second. The judge is speaking. We'll come right back to you for your second part of your question.
I was just going to say, a good example in the state of Texas, take College Station, which is not a very large city, but when Texas A&M University is in session, you had 50,000 people of that community. Those 50,000 students all drive on the streets, drink the water, as the mayor said, so it's important that they be counted where they are most of the time.
Okay, caller, the rest of your question is?
Okay, so I assume, and since she's filling that out there, we don't put her down as living under our household, so there won't.
That is
be
correct.
one less person.
Correct.
Okay.
And this is different, just to clarify, than dependence. It's residence as opposed to dependency, correct?
Correct. And we don't want you to count pets either. A lot of people ask that. Pets are family members, and they are...
During our test run today, somebody called in with a question about their dog.
They're
Dog parks we built. We may need to start counting the dogs.
That's right, but that's not us. They are dependents and family members, but no, not for this census.
What if the senior is going to travel to abroad and stay over there since March and they come back in July and they don't receive the form? What are you going to do? And then suppose that in Harris County we send prisoners up to Huntsville and they will be over there, but actually they are residents of Harris County or the city of Houston. So what are we going to do?
Actually, no, prisoners are residents of the prison. But there are many, as you can imagine, with such a vast country with everybody moving and doing things, there's always situations where I've gotten questions like, what if I'm on a plane on April 1st? Or what if I'm moving April 1st? What if April 1st is my move day and I'm moving to a different house at 6 a.m.? And so there's a lot of different situations which can't possibly be explained by everything we do. We mail a form to each place where people live or could live, and we want an answer back as to how many people live there the majority of the time.
Gabe, we talk about this being interactive, so we do have a question that comes back to something you said a little bit ago.
Sure.
I don't know how many others have not received their census forms, but I have not. And when I call the census toll-free number, the computer answerer asks me for the number on my census form. How do they get around that?
Yes, they do. The purpose right now of the Telephone Questionnaire Assistance Center is to try to provide forms in language. We also have we have 59 different language guides, and we have a variety of other resources to help people fill out their form. After April 12th, that phone messaging will be changed, so they'll be able to actually mail you a form without your ID number, or they'll be able to, even later, take the questions by phone. But the purpose is, again, to get you a form to mail it out. So if you don't have it yet, be patient, or you can go to a Be Counted site, or you can try to call the automated system. But again, after April 12th, they will be mailing out forms from there.
Now, our job here is not to help fill out any questionnaires for anybody, but this question, I think, kind of is in a lot of people's minds. I am a Mexican from Mexico City. I live in Texas. My mom is Cuban. My dad is Nicaraguan. What should I put down for number 9? And the reason I bring this question up is there are a lot of people in today's day and age that are quite a mix of all different sorts of things.
And that's the beauty of our country, I think, that we are such a diverse thing. But as was said earlier, this is a kitchen table decision. This is a decision that you, for the rest of generations coming forth, have to self-identify. We are not going to get into concepts of, well, if you're this or that, fill this out. It really is, as far as from our perspective, a kitchen table decision. It's self-identify. You need to put down whatever category best fits, but we always try to put an other category so you can write in whatever you feel if one of the boxes does not work for you.
Why?
You can also check multiple boxes as well.
Why is there not clarification on what you mean by, I mean, my favorite one is, are you Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish? How do you differentiate your Hispanic and your Latino?
Sure. Well,
and you don't have that explanation here.
Mm-hmm. True, there is, on our website, there is exploration as to why we ask a question and the way it's been worded, and it's the same question that was asked in the last census. Again, we keep going back to, we do the best we can to try to make a question that everybody can understand, but it's very difficult. But the Census Bureau definitely does not want to get into a situation where we're advising people, put this, put that, you're this, you're that. It's up to you to decide and do the best you can.
I think what's important is to remember that the Latino population generally in the country grew by about 11 million people. And within that 11 million people is a lot of different countries represented. I mean, even here in Houston, the number of the Consular Corps members from the Latin American countries is huge. So it's really still up to the individual. Like for me, if it's politically correct, I'll say Hispanic, but I'm actually the chair of a national organization that's a Latino organization because it represents the whole country. So because our country is so large and so regional, in some ways in the way people identify themselves, they had to do the best job they could of giving us all enough choices. But it goes back to the bottom line. It's who you choose to be and what you want to write down. So, I mean, I have one grandparent that did come from Spain, 3 came from Mexico. And people look at me and they think I'm white, but you know what? I'm not going to fill out white. I'm going to go back down to just the ethnic. So it's what I want to do. So it's still the table choice, as he said, the kitchen table choice. It's up to you to decide what you want to fill out. We can't tell you what to fill out.
I was born in Uruguay. I'm foreign born, and there isn't a box for me either. So, it's not, it is really, just something that you have to decide and do the best you can with.
Okay, we have another caller on the line. James, what is your question for us?
From a genealogical standpoint, how helpful is this census going to be for researchers in the future?
I think the mayor addressed that at the very top.
But it says, 72 years before you can actually look at the names.
Right.
So it is far into the future.
Yeah, but actually, and this is something that not many people know about, you can request your own census form. So therefore, if you were listed on a census form, you can request it and pay a fee and get a copy of that form before the 72 years. So sometimes people use that for proving their identity, or if their records were all destroyed and they need to recreate their identity or something, they can actually request any form that they appear on back from the Bureau before 72
so you were
years.
a child and your parents filled it out, and you
That's
wanted you want to know where they lived back then.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. I don't want us to run out of time before we explore one area that we've been kind of gingerly walking around but haven't gotten to it. There are a lot of people in our community, and when I say community, I mean all over the county, the city, whatever you consider your community, that do not want to be counted. There is a big distrust out there for the government. We saw it all that just unfolded with the whole health care thing. There are movements in this country that say, do not tell the government anything. Do not give them access to anything. They are the enemy. In front of you, you've got a very difficult challenge. How do you get through to people? This is not going to harm you, but it is going to help you. I'm going to start with the judge.
Well, I think in this case, if you just look at who's on this stage, this transcends party, this transcends philosophy, it transcends race. This is a matter of making sure that our community gets its fair share, not only of dollars, but if you just look at the state level, we've talked about congressional districts, but if you look at the 150 members of the Texas House of Representatives, they're divided up by population. And as we become a more urban state, then urban areas like Harris County and the city of Houston need to get maximum representation, because then that representation determines all sorts of things going forward for the next, I believe the commissioner said, for the next 10 years we live with these numbers. So it's absolutely critical that no matter what your politics are, we've got to get this accurate count for the benefit of everybody.
Okay, outside of those that have distrust for the government, those that live in our communities under the wire, they don't want anyone to know they're here. Explain how this will not hurt them. I'll go to the commissioner on this.
Well, it says, as I said earlier, the information is really just for the data and for the distribution of the dollars. It's about the philanthropic dollars. It's about services going to your area either through private or public or even philanthropic interests. And, if they really are mad at the government, this is one good way of getting back at them, quite frankly, because you're going to, you get money back.
Yeah. And
then you can visit with your member of council about what service you want for return for your dollar. You can go to Commissioner's Court and tell us that you'd rather, this is what you want in your neighborhood, libraries, computer access, whatever it is. So it really doesn't hurt you to be counted. It's the single most important thing that you get to do every 10 years. And it's numbers we've got to live with.
There is an ugly piece of history of the census with Japanese internment camps, and that the census was used to help in that way. So my question is to the councilman, when you've got Middle Eastern and Asians in this country who feel a big distrust toward the government, especially after 9/11, they feel like people are citing them. How do you get through to them that this is safe to do, that if something else happens from a troubled part of the world, that they're not going to pull this form out and hunt down people?
Well, you're absolutely right, especially after the terrorist attack in 9/11, the people from the Middle East and also Southeast Asia, they are really in suspicion of the government, and they don't have the trust, not only their government, but our government. But the thing is this, in order for them to have trust, we have to inform them. Now, this is the job of Census 2010. And I have to appreciate and thank you, the mayor, that you are taking the leading role in this matter, trying to push and knock on doors the last time on the 30,000 households in Gulfton. This is something that we work together as a team. So we are going to cooperate with Census 2010 and with the mayor and the county. As a team, we go out there and inform them. Once they're informed and once they know that this is something that's not going to hurt them, they will participate. If they are not going to be well informed, the distrust is going to be there.
Marcus, I'm going to come over to you now and say that in the African American community, it's generalized as apathy toward the government and getting involved with this. How do you confront that, and is that a fair characterization?
Well, I would say yes, because the apathy comes from not just necessarily a mistrust in government. It's I don't believe that you're going to do what you say you're going to do. And so, yes, that is an uphill battle. It is an uphill battle to convince that the health care clinics will be put into our neighborhood as a result of the census. So you do just that. This is the answer that I share, and I'll join the commissioner on this. If it's a mistrust, then why would you allow them to retain your dollars? It's not. I don't believe it's a great strategy to say I don't trust this entity, but I'm going to allow them to hold on to my tax dollars rather than finding a way to bring those tax dollars back to my neighborhood. So the apathy, I always approach it by telling people you work 40 hours a week, there are taxes that are taken out of your check. This is an opportunity for you to recoup and recover those taxes.
In the last minute that I have, jointly, Mayor and Judge, make your pleas.
Governments have been conducting census operations for literally thousands of years. I mentioned that earlier. And so much hinges upon an accurate count. It's what we owe ourselves. It's what we owe our children. It's a responsibility that is in our Constitution, and money and power and pride. And for me, I'm particularly interested because Houston City Council gets 2 new seats next year, and we are going to be doing our own redistricting based on the numbers. So if you live in an area and you are particularly concerned about city services, you need to tell us that you're there, and that'll be directly tied to the representation that you get.
Judge?
Very simply, if you're stuck in traffic jams every morning commuting to work, you need to fill out this form.
Get Houstonians where they live with that one.
Because Harris Countyans, too. Yeah. Because the only way to get those federal dollars back here is to show that we have the people. Or, since health care has become a big topic, the county is responsible for indigent health care. We've got to know what that population is. We've got to be able to draw down some of those federal funds, whether you like the health care bill or don't like the health care bill. We've got to be able to tap those funds to provide the health care for the indigent in this community.
And we're going to have to wrap right there. Thank you all for coming in and doing this, and thank you for Home for joining us. To get more information about the local census effort, you can visit HoustonCounts.com. And for what's going on at the county level, you can visit powerinnumbersharriscounty.com. To get more information about the 2010 census, you can visit 2010census.gov. And for help in filling out the census or to answer any other remaining questions or concerns that you might have, you can call the U.S. Census Bureau at 800-923-8282 or email the Regional Census Office at daro.census@census.gov. There you go. That finishes it up for us tonight. Remember, every one of us counts, so fill out your census and make sure every one of us is counted. I'm Ernie Manous. Thank you for joining us. Good night.